Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Let me just start kind of with the obvious one, and that's, I think, what everyone's asking, which is about Jameis, health, ability, availability, all that stuff. What can you tell us right now?
Well, it sure looks like he's going to play and he's going to start this week, and that they're treating the injury portion of that question the same as last week. They didn't give any indication that they were even regularly checking on him, monitoring him, ever concerned that the health might take him out of the game. So I really don't think that's a factor as of now. They certainly have said a couple of times they don't think there's a risk of re-injury. I mean, maybe there's a risk of more pain and soreness, and that if he never gives it time to fully rest, that he'll never get fully healthy. But as of now, it's all systems go with him, and neither he nor Dennis Allen gave any real indication that any of his missed throws were a result of him physically not being able to throw the ball like he used to. But obviously they want to work on the missed deep balls, and then what Jameis himself described as pressing a little too much when the interceptions started to add up in that fourth quarter.
What do you think, Mike? I mean, you've watched him play. You've watched him practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to say because he obviously had velocity and power on those throws. The ones that he was throwing 60 yards down the field. The touchdown pass to Michael Thomas was a fantastic throw, just a bullet right into the breadbasket. So, I can't say for sure, does the back affect the subtle accuracy at the end of those deep throws, when they were tailing outside while Chris Olave was running inside? Is that a throw he makes if he's 100% healthy? I mean, he's still got the knee brace on. He was added with the ankle injury, so he's a banged-up quarterback right now. But it certainly, and it did affect his running, his decisions to run, and he wasn't running fast and fluid and took a couple of big shots. So I think there's a point where maybe they have to evaluate whether the injury is affecting him or not, but they certainly haven't reached that point yet.
Did anything else? We could go down the rabbit hole of Mike Evans and all this, but we know what happened at this point. I'd rather just move on from it. Did anything else from Sunday, before we move ahead, did anything else from Sunday really stand out to you?
Well, I mean, I thought it was a really good defensive performance, and we were a turn, one tiny thing happening in a different direction, on that being the story of the week, is how Dennis Allen still owns Tom Brady before that game started to steamroll at the end. So I'm going to write for tonight or tomorrow about how, they're obviously going to need to get some more sack production. But I think in general, the defense did its job, certainly against the run and even affecting Tom Brady. The only time Tom Brady had success was when he attacked a third-string cornerback after Marshawn Lattimore was knocked out of the game. So I think you feel better about the defense, but you've got a ton of questions about this offense. I mean, not knowing how much of Jameis's performance had to do with his health or his decision-making or, where his throws a little too off target to Olave down the field. But then just, they're not putting points on the board. And that's 2 weeks in a row where they took a long time to put points on the board. Now, I know they took a more conservative approach and mindset into this game in particular. So I'm not quite that concerned, but we're on alert now. I mean, if they don't put together 4 or 5 scoring drives at Carolina, I think it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be inconsistent, but we need to see more flashes than, as we've said a couple of times this week, there's really only been one good quarter out of 8.
How does the Saints offense, on paper or in reality, match up against Carolina?
Well, they got steamrolled last year in Carolina, and then they had more success in the repeat meeting. Brian Burns is a problem for Carolina. Obviously they have talent in all 3 levels, but they were off to a great start last year. We're not seeing that this year. Carolina has been off to a pretty slow start this year, so you would think it's a team you could take advantage of. But I think Carolina, even though they've switched coaches and they've switched personnel over the years, they're a team that tries to knock the Saints off their rhythm with physicality. And I think that's what the Saints are going to, have to go up against in this one too. I think more than anything, though, the Saints need to find their own rhythm. What I expect to see, no matter who the opponent was this week, is a lot more rhythm offense, a lot more three-step drop throws, a lot more second and fives, third and threes, instead of sort of, certainly instead of what we saw last week where we saw all those deep shots.
He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett. neworleans.football is where you can find his work now. So offensively, is there a player? I mean, look, it's obvious to say, Mike, we could look and say, look, they're not scoring. I think you appropriately said it. Aside from the fourth quarter against Atlanta, the offense has been a problem. So what do they do? Like, how do they consistently fix that?
Yeah, like I said, I think more rhythm throws. I think that's what they did to get out of it coming out of the second half against Atlanta. I liked how it looked in the opening drive of the Tampa Bay game, the drive where Mark Ingram almost scored. I think it's just got to be a more patient approach where, they're looking for 5 and 7 yards on these completions to the weapons they have who are built to gain fine at 5 and 7 yards. Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara, if he's healthy and playing in this game. They had more success running the ball against Tampa Bay than I expected. They should certainly have more success running the ball against Carolina even than they did against Tampa Bay. So I think it'll be another one of those games where they're willing to patiently play the field position game, not press, try to play the game on their half of the field for as long as they can, settle for field goals when they have to, settle for punts when they have to. But, it needs to add up to 23 or 24. And I'm kind of surprised it hasn't yet. But I think that's going to be a clear focus is no turnovers, patient approach, and let's take those small gains and let them add up so we can find a rhythm.
If it doesn't, Mike, do you suspect we see Andy Dalton, or is there a point where we see Andy Dalton?
No, I don't think we're near there yet, unless Jameis's health becomes an issue. I think we'd be weeks away from that. The Saints aren't the only team in the NFL right now who hasn't looked like themselves yet early in the season. And there's a lot of reasons for that with this offense, guys who haven't played together before, guys who didn't play together in the preseason, that I don't think we're anywhere near that. And I don't think Jameis Winston has necessarily been ineffective. For the first 7 quarters this season, he didn't turn the ball over. And they were, as Dennis Allen said on Monday, they were playing the Tampa Bay game exactly how they wanted to play the game. They were perfectly willing to win that game 6-3 or 10-6 or whatever it was going to take. So I don't think they're frustrated. The turnovers are not. Jameis Winston is not losing games for them. He's not putting them in a bad position. The fact that he had 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter, that thing snowballed a little bit. But as Jameis himself said, he wasn't upset with his decision on that first one because he threw it to Chris Olave in the end zone, and it basically became like a touchback.
Yeah,
the ones he really regrets are the ones where he did it in Tampa Bay's scoring position. And I think we now have two years of evidence that Jameis Winston's doing a pretty good job of not harming this team, and I'm not worried about that with him right now.
On the other side, Mike, I mean, the other obvious question has been the lack of sacks. How much of that is concern? How much of that is just the opponent the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I don't think it's a concern, and I know the Saints don't think it's a concern. Okay. Dennis Allen, flatly, I'm not worried about that at all. And I know fans don't want to hear excuses that because they heard it after week 1. Oh yeah, well that was just Atlanta's offense. They didn't rush they didn't blitz. They weren't aggressive against Atlanta because they wanted to make sure that they didn't let Marcus Mariota use his legs and break free and find a rushing lane. So they had that very ineffective stand back and kind of corral defense against Atlanta that I'm sure they will have a different plan the next time they face him, at least when it comes to their run defense against that team. But, we said that, it was the opponent in week 1. And so I know people don't want to hear it again in week 2, but it was the opponent again. Tom Brady threw that ball in less than 2.5 seconds every time. Quick throw, quick throw, quick throw. He did not want to get sacked as much as he got sacked in his previous losses. But the beauty this time was Tom Brady was not effective at all. He was on his way to having a terrible game. He threw that tablet on the ground. Like I said, if he doesn't complete that 28-yard pass against P.J. Williams in the fourth quarter, his stat line is lousy in that game, and even as it was, he only threw for 190 yards and barely completed 50% of his passes.
Mike Triplett is with us, as he is every Thursday here. Talk some Saints, neworleans.football. Mike, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out you and Nick had Sean Payton on your podcast there at neworleans.football, and you asked him about coaching again and the possibility of doing so. I don't know if Muse, can you hear this? Because we can take the audio real quick if you can hear it for the benefit of those. Go ahead, take it.
That's a good question. I would say this: I really enjoy what I'm doing right now, and more maybe than I thought. If the right situation presented itself, Mike, I would definitely be interested in.
So there's a longer answer, but Mike, and people can go follow. It's Nick Underhill posted the video if you want to check it out on his Twitter at Nick_Underhill. Look, you've known and covered Sean Payton a long time. What was your reaction to the way he answered the question?
Well, I mean, I asked it because I already had that sense from hearing him talk and hearing him talk recently. I think he's ready to coach again already. I don't think this was a shrewd ploy to get away from New Orleans. I think he really needed the year off. I don't even think maybe the Miami Dolphins could have coaxed him and thrown the world at him and said, we're bringing in you and Tom Brady and stroked the ego a little bit. But I've never thought this was Sean Payton wanted to leave the Saints. I think I had heard back last October that, he was thinking about taking a year off. But I already sensed that his batteries have been recharged. He made, no bones about it, even in his farewell press conference in New Orleans, that he anticipated coaching again. And the one thing, though, is I think he'll get to be picky. The teams that need a coach are usually coaches in pretty bad situations. And if you remember, when he considered leaving the Saints in whatever that was, 15, he looked into other situations and he thought, oh man, these teams are a mess. And he got turned off by those situations. So I think he's going to be picky. I think it's going to take as he said later in that answer, a functional organization, a history of proving they're functional and that they can win, good, solid ownership, probably a good relationship with the general manager. So he's not just going to go to the teams that have the first 3 picks in the draft and fire their coaches every 2 years. It's going to take a situation he feels real good about, and he can afford to be picky. But I think he's ready as soon as that situation comes along. And, of course, we're all looking at the Dallas Cowboys as a team that could possibly fit that bill if they struggle this year. And I do think that's a team he would go and coach for. I think they'd be on the short list. But I think fans in New Orleans should probably root for that scenario to take place, because I think Dallas would have to pay more than other teams would have to pay in trade compensation to get it.
Just give me the draft picks. Mike, this has felt like an inevitability for so long. I'm at peace with it. Just give me the draft picks.
I would caution, though, I'm the king pessimist on this. A lot of people tend to disagree with me, but I think once he's sat out for a year, especially if the Saints aren't firing Dennis Allen after this year, I think fans should be prepared for that not to be, of multiple first-rounders, maybe not any first-rounders, because, all of a sudden he's out of coaching and the Saints aren't offering him a job. So they're just being punitive if they don't let him go to the team and work out a nice compromise arrangement.
I won't allow it, Mike. I will not allow that. It's got to be good. All right, Mike Triplett. He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett, of course. On neworleans.football. Is the promo code TRIP still available?
You know what? You didn't prepare. We didn't prepare beforehand. I think those got used up right away because I was so popular. That's going to be my guess. But go ahead and try typing it in.
And see if it works. All right, Mike Triplett, we appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.